Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I am your host, David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business. And part of that is bringing amazing and great people to you every week here on the podcast. And I'm excited to get into this topic today because I'm going to challenge you listeners, you business owners, you point of leadership, where you are seeing a business growing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's stable. You might think so. And in fact, a lot of founders look at growth and it's masking deeper issues. And it's dependency, lack of structure, maybe decisions that are piling up, increasing risk behind the scenes. And so they don't really realize it until it breaks. And that's why I'm excited to have and unpack this of what a true successful business looks like with Tracy Holland. And Tracy is a founder, an investor, an operator. She's helped scale HatchBeauty to over $750 million in revenue, and now works with founders to build businesses that actually last. She's got some amazing background and history, and I'm super excited to have you here on the podcast, Tracy.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just going to ask right to the get-go of like, when does that business that looks successful on the outside, but is actually fragile? It's fragmented underneath. What are you seeing there, Tracy? Because you have such an experience with working with so many different businesses and business owners.
Yeah, it depends on what size business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think there are different issues at different stages.
Yeah.
And there's a great book called Traction. If you haven't
Mm-hmm.
read Traction, I highly
Yep.
recommend it. If you're not using it, you need to know more about how to do what's needed at the different stages. But I think what you will find is in the beginning, there's always a sales issue. Generally speaking, revenue is a crucial issue. Then once revenue gets solved, then you have a staffing issue, and it's a replication of yourself and finding
Mm-hmm.
a way to bring consistency to a consumer or a consumer experience. And then the next thing is the layers of management and staffing. And then how do you communicate and ensure the vision stays true and the scale continues when you can't necessarily touch and feel and guide everyone on the team
Mm-hmm.
because there's not enough of you to go around.
Yeah.
And then ultimately it's you figuring out what your true best way of contributing to the company is, because as many of us can say as founders, we think we're great at all aspects of the business. And I call it founderitis. And when I
Mm.
meet someone who has founderitis, I say, I think you have seen a place of stagnation because you don't see where you fit in the business and where you're better served finding a replacement for the role that you play in these other areas. And how do
Mm-hmm.
you optimize the gifts that you were first bestowed, in which you were able to build the company, and know when to fire yourself as an operator and move yourself
Mm.
into the owner's box?
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, that was one of my questions I had. Was like, what do you kind of answered it, but when you see what do you consistently see there, like those founders don't talk about, and if they don't have somebody like you, Tracy, they might not even realize it. Like you said, I think you got founderitis. They don't even realize how much they have it, right? Until you start
Yeah,
having these
you don't.
conversations.
Well, and here are the symptoms, because the nice thing about founderitis, just like any ailment, it traditionally comes with symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, oh, I have a sore throat, runny nose. You kind of know I have a
Mm-hmm.
cold. Okay. So tell me if any of these things are resonating for you in this moment. And it may be a place in which you need to take a pause. So one is you find yourself irritable, agitated, and white knuckling 23 out of 24 hours a day. Number two is you find yourself running on fumes and not having enough bandwidth to not only fill your own cup, but you find yourself irritable with your family members, your loved ones, your kids, because you're feeling taxed and stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, you are working Monday through Friday, 12 to 15 hours, and then you're waiting to Saturday and Sunday to catch up on your email and get your email done because you didn't get any of that done during the week because you were holding too many meetings,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow. Yeah.
Um, Number four is you don't know your KPIs. If I ask a founder or an entrepreneur tell me, I just want to know, kind of generally speaking, tell me what your current AR is and
Hmm.
what's your aging. Tell me what your current AP is. Where do you sit and how much money do you owe? Do you know what your sales forecast is for the year approximately? Are you going to
Hmm.
land kind of on where you were last year, below or above, and by what percentage, right? Do
Hmm.
you have an idea of where you're landing in terms of revenue? Has anything major impacted your business? So tariffs can be a major impact, or
Yep.
any kind of takeout of team, or key members of your team, or any kind of major impact, or a key customer relationship. So if if a founder doesn't know their KPIs, and I'm talking like ARAP, cash on hand, how much sellable inventory do you currently have? If you're
Hmm.
in the inventory carrying business, or
Yep.
what was your head count this last month on a
Hmm.
services business? Like, if
Right.
you don't know your basic KPIs and you're kind of like, I need to get back to you, you're definitely not in your own area of genius and zone of genius, because somebody else is not going to look at that the way you are, unless you have a very cool, skilled CFO, head of finance,
Yep.
somebody who's really checking to make sure that you are covered in these key areas of your business.
Hmm. Yeah. And would you say, they're having, when growth, I mentioned, led with this, with growth starts hiding problems instead of solving them. And so sometimes, I've heard this many times, Tracy, and I'd love you to speak to it, where their revenue is going up, but their profitability is going down.
Yes, I agree
Yeah.
with that. And there's
Yeah.
a period in time in which that's okay, because
Hmm.
there's a gap generally from growth to profitability, because
Hmm.
generally we need to infrastructure a business to sustain measurable growth over time. And that could include team or headcount. That includes a SaaS system of CRM, or some automation that needs to be integrated in order to bring efficiencies. So I'm okay with this kind of gap,
Hmm.
but where I start to see issues with, especially direct to consumer brands and brands that are front facing and driving through marketing, is they see a ROAS number of 2, 3, 4, and they're like, oh, for every dollar I spend, I'm bringing back 4 in return, so I should be making money. And yet they don't really understand where their sales are coming from, and they
Hmm.
don't know, are you remarketing to existing customers,
Hmm. Right.
or are you bringing in new customers? And if you're spending ad dollars on existing customers, you already paid once for them. You shouldn't have to pay a second time.
Right. Yeah,
Does this
absolutely.
make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's
Yes.
okay with ROAS bringing in new top of funnel customers, but if you're really looking at where your source of income is coming from, ensure that you're not paying fresh new dollars to bring back old customers. That is through ads, and I'm
Hmm.
talking meta ads, etc. You can
Hmm.
retarget through newsletters and CRM and all that good stuff, and that's okay. But I
Hmm.
do see D2C brands getting confused about the KPIs and the metrics that really will bring them success over the long term, which is the lifetime value of that customer that they've already
Hmm.
paid to obtain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is, hey, you need to be paying attention to these patterns, and this is where you've seen this so many times over and over again, Tracy, these blind spots that they're thinking they're actually being more successful than they are. And one thing that we talked about before we recorded the podcast that stood out to me, and I wanted to bring on the podcast, is you said to me, "There's you're three decisions away from bankruptcy if you're not paying attention to this." Can you unpack that a little bit more? Because I think that was so powerful when you brought that concept to me.
Yeah, I think so. I liken it to flying an airplane,
Hmm.
right? So, can you imagine if your pilot got on the plane and he put on autopilot and something was wrong with autopilot, and he wasn't going back and checking his coordinates to make
Right.
sure that he was heading in the right direction? I think business is a little bit the same way. And we've heard these stories about Tesla autopilot driving, and then,
Oh yeah.
it flies off
Yep.
the side of the road.
Right.
I think of business the same way. And what happens, I hear often, is the complacency of a founder saying, and here's one of my favorites, founders say, "Oh, I'm not in sales. I love my business, but I'm not sales. I don't do sales. I'm actually the product inventor. I'm the creative. I love working on the product." And I always say, if you're not in sales meetings with your key customers, and if you have a salesperson or sales team, that's okay. But
Mhm.
as the founder and as the product person, it's incumbent upon you to be part of the sales process, front facing to the customer. So that's
Mhm.
number one way I see founders go off their plan
Mhm.
and then find out too little too late that they
Mm.
have made a critical error. Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
Number two is the tie or the combination of your on-hand inventory and your inbound inventory with your cash and your sales pipeline. So those three things have to be married up all the time, and you need to know, how much do I have in my warehouse that is
Yep.
sellable? How much do I have on the water coming in? How much do I have in terms of cash to pay for all of these goods? And then what's my pipeline look like on the sales front? Is there any
Yeah.
material change? And
Mhm.
really having your finger on the pulse of that, if you're an inventory carrying business, is
Yep.
literally 90 days away from going into default or having I mean, obviously, depending on what your cash resources are and how
Right.
much liquidity you have. But I think of businesses between 1 to 20 million, that's an absolute mission critical number to know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the third one is your culture.
Yeah.
How are
Yeah.
your people wanting to show up? Are they
Right?
enjoying themselves? Are your people working for you or against you?
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing more inherent than good team culture and hygiene, right? Within
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
cultural environment, and
Mhm.
staying connected as humans
Yeah.
to the vibe of what's
Yes.
happening inside your four walls. And are people coming to work with joy? Are they treating your customers with love? When they
Mhm.
answer your phone and they're on your behalf, answering your phone and saying, "Hey, I'm just calling to talk to this person," and how they're received at the
Yes.
front door or how they're received on the phone is as such a representation as to whether people want to come back and do business with you.
Yes,
So,
absolutely, Tracy. Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm passionate about, steward your business, take care of your people, and show that up there, and it shows up at the bottom line at the end of the day, like you're saying, absolutely, you know?
Yes.
Mhm. And how
It's
many
so
businesses
true.
are so I mean, Tracy, you've been around doing this, and to find good people, and I love working with your team, by the way. You had an amazing team as we're getting ready for the podcast, but to have people that stick with you year after year through all the different things, I like to say that gives you a competitive advantage in the market for that people that are truly engaged and committed and loyal, right, Tracy?
Oh, 100%. It makes all the difference. And the truth
Mhm.
is, they want to know when things are going south, and they want to know
Mhm.
where they can play a role in fixing it,
Mhm.
rather than and that's why I say, if you're white knuckling and irritable and showing up short and
Mhm.
showing up crispy, I always call it, "Oh, I'm feeling
Crispy,
crispy,
that's a good
guys.
word.
I'm worried," is your people feel that vibe from you. They feel the
Yeah.
energy. And then
Yes.
they're like, "Is my job on the line? Should I be worried? What's happening?"
Yes.
And that comes across to your team and to your people and to your customers. And at the end of the day, people do business with people they know, like, and trust, period.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right?
As you said that, Tracy, there's a book, you probably know Brené Brown, but she wrote a book, and one of them was called Atlas of the Heart, and in that story, she talked about being a waitress and coming into the, restaurant. She says, "I'm blown," like, meaning, "I'm cooked, I need help," and people knew exactly what that meant, and they stepped in and they helped each other, and I think that is an amazing organization if they know that of, like, how do we help and create a self-sustaining organization. But why is it, do you say that, because I hear there's a fragility of what you're saying, Tracy, of business owners maybe delay, or they don't think that, well, it's not that bad. I could find somebody else. And, there's, at least I've seen that, and they don't know the cost of, like you said earlier, of finding, getting somebody implemented up to speed, knowing all the processes and procedures and how to do it. Why is it there is a delay, or they kind of want to push off, and that which is creating this fragility, if you will, like kind of,
Yeah.
putting a distance from that.
Yeah, I think as humans, we do that when we're stressed. Right? Our
Mhm.
brains are reptilian when we're in fear. That
Mhm.
fight or flight response takes over, and we start
Yes.
to hunker down into our storytelling and all of our
Mhm.
mindset issues around this isn't working. What do I do? I'm
Mhm.
alone. I don't
Yeah.
know how to handle this. And that creates a fragile environment because people can feel that from you. And
Mhm.
the reality is, guys, if you're on the fence about starting a business and you're like, gosh, I feel like I don't love my job and I'm thinking about starting a company and I want to be an entrepreneur. Believe me, it's so much to me. It seems so much more challenging to be a business owner than it is to be anchored into a role with a company that has SOPs and
Yep.
responsibilities and team. And yes, there are aspects of large companies that everyone here could probably point to and say, well, they're not loyal or their politics or their other issues. But,
Mhm.
being a business owner means you are a waitress. You are Lucille Ball on the line with the
That's right.
chocolates.
Yes,
And
yes.
you're stuffing a couple in your
Uh,
mouth and in your shirt, and then you're hoping that the conveyor
Hopefully enough
belt
to
keeps
sneeze, yeah,
going,
doesn't
you
break,
know?
yeah.
So I think what Brene Brown is saying is so true, which is if you're opting in for that life,
Yep.
which I have my entire
Mhm.
life, and I will tell you that there's many lonely moments, especially if you're in a life love relationship, that if
Mm.
you're not in a relationship with a partner who understands that you have
Mm.
another marriage and that's to your business,
Yeah.
um, that it can get overwhelming, and the way I handle that is I'm really open about it. And
Mhm.
I have my mindset practices that I make sure that I implement every single
Yep.
day, and
Mhm.
then I encourage my team to do the same, and we talk a lot about what those are, so they
Mhm.
have that as an anchor and a
That's
core
great.
value of our business.
Mhm.
And then when there's issues, they're all volunteering to say, here are the issues I'm seeing, and these are the things going wrong, which
Yep.
is so much better to know upfront than to have a punitive work environment in which people are afraid to speak.
Absolutely. Well, you're leading by example, Tracy, what I hear you saying, and what I see a lot of business owners struggle. One again, why I wanted you on the podcast is there's like oftentimes this. Yes, you're this business. You're married to it. It is absolutely your baby, if you will. But it becomes completely dependent upon you, and so where I'm sure you're familiar with that book, E Myth by Michael Gerber, where you have like
Mhm.
right, where you have somebody that's the baker and they're like, I want to make the cakes, but then they don't understand how to do all the other parts, be the manager, be the entrepreneur, and do all of those things and move between them. Like you said, be part of the sales process, but also be out of it, understand that. And so talk a little bit about maybe your journey of like how you became not so like I'm not the answer person, know everything, right? Because you can't be, like you said, you can't be everywhere. But talk a little about your journey and what you've seen and how you've helped founders kind of get out of that bottleneck.
Yeah, I think the E-Myth is such a rock star book. I
Mm-hmm.
think Michael Gerber was way ahead of his time in
Mm-hmm.
I read that book the same year or two I read Zig Ziglar's book on sales and having a heart-led sales connection with this idea that sales isn't actually sales. Sales is listening to the issues that your customers are sharing with you, and then having a service-oriented heart in which your goal is to solve that issue for them. That
Mm-hmm.
is sales. And
Yep.
I think about that every single day, which is first of all, I love solving problems. It's one of my favorite things to do. And if you don't inherently love solving problems, being an entrepreneur is not your probably your best bet as a career path. But let's just say you're a great lawyer, a great doctor, or a great CPA, and you say, I'm tired of working for others and I want to go do this on my own. Speaking to the E-Myth's premise is really know yourself, know thyself,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then put yourself in the role that will make you the optimal, best service led heart provider of the solution that you are selling, and then surround yourself with other people who do that for you in support of that effort and pay them well and
Hmm.
respect their input and let them stay in their lane.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful. Well said, Tracy. And I would say, if those of you that are listening to this, because I've heard many people fall into the trap to what you said, I want to go do this for myself. But basically, they've just created their own job. It's not really a business. It's a job, and that's it. And they haven't really created something that's a legacy and people that could be a part of the greater vision. But what I found, what you just said, Tracy, I can totally tell you've done this deep work with yourself, and I think you bring this to your clients. But I found a lot of people stay in the technician mode of like this. I'm just going to double down on a technician, and they haven't embraced what you just described, as I call your natural voice order, the way that you show up innately apart from your technical skills. And I think there's a challenge in the workplace of how do I embrace that, and what does that, can you, and what does that look like? Because you're a leader, and somebody else is a leader, but they may be showing up differently as that, and it's okay to be different. And sometimes I'm trying to
Yes.
like, well, a leader is Donald Trump and Elon Musk, or Steve Jobs. That is a type of leader, but that isn't all of the leaders out there. And so, to your point, like, how do you understand that about yourself and value that, and then value, to your point, value your team and have them then feel safe enough to come talk to you because they know who they are and they know who you are, and we can like really work well together.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
so. Let's back up. I think
Yeah.
most technical people who own businesses and are technicians in their own right are excellent at delivering solutions,
Hmm.
and their team is very focused on here's our product or here's our solution. Here's what
Yep.
we do well.
Hmm.
But what you haven't done in that is stepped into the service oriented, heart led space that says, my real job here is to listen to what my customers' pain points are, find out how they're suffering from that pain point, solve it by
Hmm.
identifying and saying to our customer, I hear you, and then teasing out what are the pain points that we solve for,
Yep.
making sure that the whole team knows what those pain points are that we solve
Hmm.
for, can speak it, can say it, can put it in a 5-second recap. Here's what
Hmm.
we do. And this is the technical way in which we solve it within
Hmm.
our four walls. And you could really apply this if you think about it any business, to be
Right.
candid. And so once your people understand those elements, they will feel embodied by the same vision that you have. And
Hmm.
I can give you a for example. I
Yeah,
just
please.
spoke to a woman last week who's a brilliant technical uh she assesses performance in teams.
Yep.
She identifies where there are performance issues,
Yep.
and then she comes in and says, I'll lead the team to the next level. And in that process, maybe we weed out some folks that don't fit.
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm. Yep.
So when I said to her, what do you exactly do? And
Hmm.
she said, well, I lead teams. And I said, what kind of teams? And she goes, it doesn't matter, teams in any business. I said, okay, how is your sales pipeline right now? How many companies do you have that are
Hmm.
willing to hire you to do this? And she said, well, that's my problem. None. I know how to do all these things, but I really don't have a way
Hmm.
of getting new clients in the door. And I said, okay, let's back up then and start to talk about what are the pain points that the
Yep.
companies that you would be working with have. When
Right.
would they find that they need you? And she goes, well, when they're not scaling, when they're not growing, when there are internal politics. And I said, well, it's actually a much bigger problem than that. If you think about it, let's step back even further. It's a
Hmm.
revenue problem.
Hmm.
It's impacting your clients' future revenue or current revenue is at risk of growth or stability if they do not figure out how to build and scale teams with good, excellent team leadership or skills or
Absolutely.
whatever it is that you bring in. And she's like, yes. And I said, okay, so what does turnover cost? What does it cost them to have a key person leave? What does it cost them if they can't replicate the role very
Yep.
quickly? So we started mapping out tangible costs. I said, okay, let's go back and let's have you research, because she's in a very specific area of core business that she likes to
Mhm.
service very specific types of companies.
Yep.
I said, go find out how many of these companies are suffering from this issue, like 5% or 50%. And
Hmm.
at what stage of their business do they usually see these issues? And I know
Yeah.
for me, I went from 30 people in my company to 120. And at that 40 to 50 person tipping point, everything fell apart
Yep.
in my business. I
Yep.
mean,
Mm.
I can go through and stack for you like 5 major crash moments in that year,
Mm.
and then going from 50 to 120, many of the issues that we faced, and I'm talking things like I had never even thought of, like sexual harassment lawsuits or
Mhm.
whatever it may be,
Yep.
because
Yep.
I didn't have my pulse on everyone on the team of what was going on because I couldn't, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so when you start to tease out, or when you start to break it down in terms of how to solve any business issue you have, in my opinion,
Mhm.
is know who your customer is and what's their biggest pain point and what are the major inflection points for them in which they need a solve. And then make sure your team really can speak to that, because that's your mantra, that's your mission. The fact that you can do these technical things well is really not that big of a deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I hear you. I hear you. Yes. Yes.
Because there are other people who do technical things probably better than you do because they have AI or they have the right.
Yep. Yep.
But if you have the service-oriented heart of being like your mission in life is my mission in life, I can say it really easily. I am here on this planet to help women make obscene amounts of money. Entrepreneurial women, I believe, do not understand how much access they have to income for themselves and for their business. And my goal in life is to help women find an easy, smooth path to wealth creation by utilizing some of the things I've learned to build and grow and scale their business. It's
Mhm.
that
Yep.
simple. And so I become obsessed with
Yes. You.
how do I
Yes.
help these women figure this out,
Absolutely. Absolutely. No,
right?
that's why I wanted you why you on the podcast. Like I told you when we were talking that before I started Steward Your Business, I work with a woman-owned company here in California, Sacramento, and she started the company in 2012. And fortunately, by the time I came with her in 2018, Tracy, to your point, she was struggling and having people to that scale of the business couldn't sustain people. Finally, we got 1 million in revenue the first year I was there with her. But it was to your point, she was involved with NABO and other women business owners and getting outside help because, you know, for the various reasons, there was these obstacles and these challenges. And I think that's why I wanted you to have on the podcast is that if you're that woman business owner, or this applies whether you're a woman or not, but if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I'm stuck. Well, there's somebody out here, Tracy, who's an advocate that you can call on and say, hey, goodness, I'm not alone. I can get through this and I can really make a difference. Whatever is on that burden on my heart and my mission to reach people. And I think to your point, Tracy, I think there's these folks that have this true burden, because I think you and I both know if you're just trying to get in it for money, that's not going to sustain you. Yes, it's awfully the money is like getting the obscene money is a byproduct. It's the fruit of doing all this work well, right? But
Yep.
it's living that mission and that vision that is put a burden on your heart. Because I'll tell you, as a business owner myself now, there's days where if you don't have that compelling vision, you're not going to continue on. You're going to burn out and be one of the numbers of the many failed businesses out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the reality is we've got to have fun, guys. Otherwise, we shouldn't be doing this.
Amen. Amen,
We could be
Tracy.
doing something else. We could be doing something else.
Amen. Absolutely. And I so appreciate that you're bringing this to the forefront. And yeah, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. And by the way, as you guys are listening to this, we're going to put all in the show notes how you connect with Tracy and Interfifth, and we're connected on LinkedIn and all that good stuff. So make sure you go to our show notes and leave comments too, so that Tracy can respond to them if you have a
Please.
comment or feedback, by all means. But so, as we go through, we remove this dependency, if you will. The founder obviously is integral, but what have you seen then, as how do we build that business, that chassis, if you will, that structure, over in, consistently? Is it where you're coming in, Tracy, or you're having the outside folks, you know where they're at, and you're almost like, if that, like you said, the head count or dollar amount, you're probably going to be running into these problems and challenges. So you can actually help them kind of look forward and say, you're going to need a more refined CRM, or you're going to need some kind of enterprise resource planning software, whatever the case might be, or you're going to be needed to do more hiring and recruiting because of so on and so forth. So how do you come in with business owners and help them look at this, Tracy? Because obviously there's different types of businesses and whatnot. But yeah, walk us through a little bit of the process of how you help these business owners.
I don't anymore because I just don't have time. I buy distressed assets. I
There you
have
go.
teams I drop in and I build and scale them. And I many
Yeah.
times re-up the founder to an equity position that they would have lost otherwise.
Hmm.
And that's where I utilize my time. I used to work with clients and with companies. And I've worked with now with over 3,000 entrepreneurs in the last 2.5 years through Inner Fifth. And I realize if I did this, and this is really my passion, not my income source,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would be like, it's like 5 full-time jobs. So
Oh yes.
I have my podcast and I talk to entrepreneurs, and that's free. And I give them my thoughts on different topics. And in this year in Inner Fifth, I'm specifically very focused on live stream selling and teaching, especially women entrepreneurs, how to utilize live stream selling
Hmm.
as a free way to promote and build and grow their audience. And I believe in the old days, we used to sell one to one, and now there's an opportunity to sell to one to many and eventually one to millions. So
Mm.
many people jump right into paid ads and they say, okay, we'll do ads, and then ads aren't working and they don't understand. And
Hmm.
my encouragement in teaching how to live stream sell, and my last business, I just sold it a couple months ago. I did 27 million in 2 years in live stream selling from zero, from like an idea to launching 24 months later. We had done 27 million at about 7.5 million in EBITDA. And then I sold the company. We closed in March on that business.
Hmm.
And I wanna teach women how I learned how to
Yes.
do that, as well
Mhm.
as how I recommend you start and what it takes to live stream sell. And it's not just products, you can also do it with services, you can do it with, if you have a restaurant, and if you're an orthodontist. I wanna teach women my approach to how I build an audience, how I connect with customers, how I listen, how I solve, and then how I bring products or services to them and create a very warm, high conversion audience that's interested in buying what I'm selling, because I'm not selling anything, I'm just talking.
Mhm, mhm. That's super powerful. I mean, I think a lot of business owners struggle with, like you said, first, especially the beginning, like how to get the sales getting going, the cash flow going. So if they can get that structure in place, like you're saying, and that's amazing that you were able to do that from 0 in 2 years to 27 million, and the value that you created is tremendous. And again, why I wanted you on the podcast, because again, some people get stuck in the I was just talking to a branding expert earlier today, Tracy, and people are just stuck on, oh, I got to get my logo and the colors, and I got to get my LLC and this other stuff, and they're not thinking things strategically like you're talking about, right? They're just getting
Yeah,
sucked into other things, and it's like doesn't make that much of a difference,
right.
at the end of the day.
Right. And at the end of the day, you're the best solve to any business issue. And I always say to entrepreneurs, "Oh, is this a money issue? If it's a money issue, then it's not really an issue. It's always solvable. We just need to figure out what is the solve and get really creative about it." But my point to these folks who are focused on their logo or all of those things, which I love, I mean, those
Mhm.
are all important, but solve first with sales and make sure that you have enough jet fuel to keep everything moving so that you can have time to do that, because
Yeah.
that's your luxury is time.
Yes. Well, and I'm gonna I just did a recent podcast, Tracy, with a PR specialist, Ronica Clary, and we were talking about, how business owners get it wrong in they're trying to get placement and visibility, but their message is off. And so what does the message, to your point, what's the core message or themes? And why is there such they're moving past that? And I hear you saying it again: slow down, get really clear on this problem that you solve, and understand it. And they're just going so quickly sometimes. And I think it goes to the core of branding too, as well as, like, there's a skip. Like, we want to get this brand board or vision, visual guideline, but it's like, hold on, it's really, what is your ethos, your mythos, your pathos? What is it all? What are you about? And I think, Tracy, that's what I'm hearing you say loud and clear. And I think
Loud and
somebody
clear.
that they need to do that, but it takes somebody like you, I think, Tracy, to draw it out of them. Like, you just gave that example of this other woman that you're working with, and she wasn't even clear on that.
Interesting. So we do that inside of Inner Fifth, and the way
Mm-hmm.
I I have and if this is useful for anyone out there, I want you to
Mm-hmm.
really utilize this, because this is probably the easiest way to do this first pass at this work, which is, imagine going to Instagram, and you can go to mine and you can see exactly my formula. So Tracy M. Holland, please tag me and I'll lovingly send you back a DM and share my thoughts with you if you want me to look at your page and give you thoughts. But the best way to do this, if you go to my Instagram, you will see it says exactly who I am. One very, very short sentence. I am a female entrepreneur. I solve this problem, and this is how I solve it. And now link to get more information. Here's my link tree, which you can go in and then see some examples of my work. You can see my press, you can see my Substack. But here's who I am. Here's the problem that I solve.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I go about doing it. And you can see I've done it in a very succinct way, but it's my formula. And I say that true of every single person in your company. If you want 100 million, and I went from 0 to 100 million, it took me 5.5 years, but I self-funded that with a bank.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have private equity. I didn't have venture investment. I don't have a rich uncle. And I will tell you that every person in that company knew exactly who we are, what we do, and who we solve for. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so clearly defined that we knew we don't make beauty products with celebrity talent and retail. That is not what we do. But if you ask me, that is actually what we do. That's how I get paid. But what
Mm-hmm.
we actually did is we brought innovative, creative brand solutions to retailers who wanted a point of difference. So they want to have something unique in their retail environment that doesn't have a competitor across the street selling the exact same product, potentially at a dollar less, a dollar more, with the same size, whatever. We created unique products that were brand products, unique brands or unique products for retailers. So they had a point of difference for their
Mm-hmm.
from their competitor. And yes, we did that with celebrity talent, and yes, we did that with innovation and all the things that we did. But that's like how you make the sausage,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right.
When you sell the sausage, you need to be like, are you starving? Are you famished? Have you not had a decent meal? Like, you need to
Yes.
go to the pain,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think sometimes, I know I fell into this trap, Tracy, of you wanting to help so much that you're offering the solution and the benefits, and you're not getting to the, like you said, the pain. And they're like, and I get this all the time, especially on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, they're pitching me all the time. I'm like, you don't even know the problem. You haven't listened to me. Oh,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
You have to know what you're facing. So let me give some examples to those who are saying, now I kind of get what she's saying, but I don't even know how to go there.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you go there is, first of all, look at my Instagram and how I've laid it out. How I say, here's who I am. I'm award-winning female entrepreneur. I help women find unabashed wealth and success by teaching them KPIs, live stream selling, and go to market strategies, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be, here's who I am, here's what I do for these type of clients or for this person, and here's the problem I solve, and here's how I do it. That same approach is in a meeting with anyone you're talking to, where you start to say, what's your biggest issue? What's keeping you up at night? What makes you sweat? Why did you go with this last provider and why didn't it work? What would you be
Mm-hmm.
doing differently? And those
Yeah.
kinds of questions are how you're going to get to the heart of the issue, and
Mm-hmm.
then how you can start creating packages and opportunities to solve for it.
Fantastic. I want to go longer with you, Tracy, but we're getting close to the end of the episode here, and you've dropped so many good things, and there's way more I want to unpack here. But I hope as you're listening, as you're the business owner, you're there, you're in a company, maybe you're thinking about stepping out on your own, that these things are starting to swirl around in your brain a little bit, and think, okay, man, I hadn't thought about this, I didn't consider this. I like to, Tracy, to maybe I didn't ask you a question, or maybe I missed something, and I want to make sure I give you the opportunity. If I'm the business owner, or I'm the person thinking about stepping out on doing this, what would be something that you would want them to start to do today, so that they could actually apply this, what we've been going through? Well, you gave them this, so they can definitely go to your Instagram. We're going to put that in the links. So you guys definitely go to your Instagram. But if there's something else that you would say, if you did nothing else, start. And it could, whatever that might be, Tracy, I'd love to hear from you on what would you encourage our listeners to start doing today?
I would be mapping out, who are you solving the problem for, and what is the biggest problem that they
Mm,
face, right? So
mhm.
let me give you another for example.
Yeah.
I met a woman who has designed the best, tightest, coolest denim jean that fits your body. And when you take it on and off, it doesn't stay, you know, it doesn't stay out of shape. It just like
Mm,
sucks you back in and it holds you in and makes you look great. So she was going on and on about what the fabric was and how, you can stretch it and it pulls back, and what it's woven by, and what kind of fitments she's using. And she was so in love with these jeans. And I said, who are the jeans for? And she said, well, for me, for you, for anyone who wants to really feel like they're being held in and everything's like smooth and tucked in. And I said, no, no, no. What's happening? Why would I want to buy these jeans? Like, what is it what's the thing that I wake up in the morning and I go to my closet and there's 50 pairs of pants in these? And why would I select your jeans out of the 50 other pairs of pants in my closet to wear that day? How am I feeling about myself? And she's like, well, let's say you were going to your high school reunion and you wanted to look like you were back in high school and it's your 30-year high school reunion. My jeans, when you put them on, like they bring you in 2, 3 sizes. And when you wear them, you just feel so good about yourself because everything goes back to where it once was. And you never have to worry about pockets of things hanging out and not being. And I was like, all right, we've got your
We
ad.
got something
So
there.
here's the hook. The hook is butt bulge, fat thigh bulging, you know, Thanksgiving, overate at Thanksgiving, whatever it may be. These jeans before and after, put them side by side. And so let's go deep into the problem. Let's go
Yes.
deep into the problem of, how do you feel when you put on a pair of pants and you can't button them? How does it feel when you split your jeans because they're too tight and you can't wear them any longer? You know? And once we went into that, she was able to roadmap exactly who her customer was, even down to an age range, to
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
gosh, a woman post pregnancy, especially after a second or third child, this is where really things go into
Mhm.
never, never land, and it
Mm.
takes a year to 2 years to gain your figure back. So we were able to really define 2 or 3 of our avatars just by going deep and deeper, deeper, deeper into the pain.
Mm.
So if you want to make $1 million, I'm just telling you this right now. Try this and call me. If you want to make $1 million this year, and I don't know how much you're making, so it doesn't matter. If you make 10 million, you want to make 20. If you want 5 million,
Yes.
you make 10. If you want to make $1 million this year and you're listening to this, I will tell you how to do that. And that is doing exactly what I just said. Get deep, deep, deep into the avatar of who you're solving the issue for and what their biggest, most heart-wrenching, scariest moments of wake up and cold sweat in the middle of the night, and get deep into that and feel it for her. Put it on paper, put words around it, put feelings around it. Describe what it feels like. When is she feeling that? At what stage of life is she in? Is she single? Is she married? Is she divorced? What's going on at home? Get deep. And that
Yep.
way, when you're sitting in front of that customer, you can say, "Are you experiencing this? Tell me more about it. Is this sound right for you? Okay, give me more. This is how we solve for that. Let me tell you what we do to approach that."
Beautiful.
And you have a yes before you even show them the price. It doesn't matter. The price does not matter.
Yes, I will just echo Tracy. Literally, I had a sales call right before this, and he said to me, you hit it. He said, "Hey," because my thing I say is I help business owners and leaders take vacations because they cannot step away from the business. And he said, literally, I can't take a vacation. He told me that on the call, and he's like, I need it, and how do we do this? Well, we develop it. You're becoming a better leader, and you can, trust your team. And to your point, but he quoted that to me, Tracy, like you're saying, of like the problem that I'm facing. The
Yes.
challenge I'm facing, right?
Yes. And I would be saying, gosh, how many summers do you have left? I mean, we're
Right.
coming into summer and
Yep.
you're 38. So you have
Mm-hmm.
what, 40 more summers? How old are your kids?
Yeah.
Like this is where it gets real.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
people start to say, "Oh my gosh, my kid's 14 and I haven't taken a summer vacation in 5 years, 10 years. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't even know what
Right.
that means." Like, that's where I say go deep.
Go deep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
would love, we're gonna maybe have to have you come back, Tracy, but this has been a fantastic episode having you on here. And I think what people realize, I'm hoping that you guys are listening in and listen here is go deeper. I think however deep you think you are, I would say go deeper again to what you're saying, Tracy, and really double down on that, because I think sometimes we think we're deeper than we are. You said earlier on we have founderitis, or some things that we may have some blind spots in there, and reach out to Tracy. You've got somebody, you're an advocate. You have me. You have so many people that have come on this podcast because, to your point, Tracy, you're coming because you want to help people. You, at the end of the day, you want to see people have an abundant life and a successful life, and that's why I love having guests like you here on the podcast. And so it's a real honor having you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. And I hope anyone out there who's feeling a little down this week or feeling like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, like get up, shake it off. You got this. We can all do it together. There's so many resources out there, just like David's podcasts, that are here to just give you some insight and reset your mind and reset your alignment. We got it. We got this.
You
It's
got it. We
easy.
got
We can do
this.
it.
We can do this. Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Tracy. Of course, we love you guys liking and subscribing and following along. It really means a lot. Share this with those if you found value and encourage you today. We're excited for you. We're rooting for you, right, Tracy? And
We are.
we hope that you will come back and join us. And until next time, be well. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Thank you.